Hello and welcome to the DD Quackcast. This is Ozone Ocean. With me is Tartan Baines. Hello.
Hello.
Baines.
Hello.
There we go. We're all helloed up. Okay, so welcome to the Quackcast. Hello, Drunkduckers. Welcome to the Quackcast. As you know, we welcome you again after the theme music. Quackcast number 678. Oh, great. Okay. So we are talking about panel order this week, and this was inspired by Baines's news post about panel orders and unusual panel orders and how you should read them, right to left, left to right, up and down in a Z shape or an N or something like that. So, yeah, what is the typical way? And, yeah, there's all kinds of different ways of doing it. But before we get into talking about that, I have to introduce the featured comic. Quackcast has given us a featured comic this week, and her feature was They're Both a Kilogram. So, Quai, tell us about They're Both a Kilogram.
Hello, this is Quackcast, and the feature I've selected for this week is They're Both a Kilogram by Kilobran, and it is rated E for everyone. Aaliyah is known by the alias Feather, a heroic fighter protecting the town of Half-Pork from monsters. Enter Steel, the effervescent arch-nemesis of Feather, whose namesake is the opposite of soft and light. The town of Half-Pork has been left without a hero, following an unsuccessful battle against Steel, where he posed the question, aren't you tired of everyone having a say in who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do? Aaliyah changes her tune when she begins helping out the local community and realizes helping people feels just as good as winning. The art is filled with color. The majority of the pages are fully digitally colored, amusingly creative and unconventional scenes, such as a clothed horse walking on two legs, break a few eggs laid by the Eggtopus, and read They're Both a Kilogram by Kilobran, rated E.
That was Quackcast with They're Both a Kilogram. Okay, so, and you'll have to read the comic to know what that refers to. So, get over on there and see what is being talked about there. Alright, so next up we have, Gumwalls has given us his lovely, gorgeous featured music. Oh my goodness me. I really enjoyed this one. It was quite a treat for me to listen to. I listened to this on a train journey on the way back home to my house. Didn't have time to do it to listen on the computer, so I loaded it up on my phone and just let it play. It's very tricky when you're sort of on the way home, you're trying to load this stuff up on your phone and trying to get all the right save it in the right spot, make it play in the right way, load the file up, have it open by the correct app and all this kind of crap. It's fiendishly difficult. And then you're having to juggle around with the right new documents to open up, to edit it and all this, to put in the description. Because this document's 40, 50 pages or something like that with all the different descriptions of all the different Gumwalls songs and the links to every comic and the notation of every Quackcast that's ever been a part of. So now, as I'm finishing stalling while the document's loading where the actual...
Oh, that's what you're doing. I'm trying to figure this out.
The actual descriptions are... which I did not have loaded up or pasted into the Quackcast. I will read you the description of this particular song and tell you what song it is, what comic it's for. Alright, so the comic Gumwalls chose for us was Explorer Chronicles. Prepare for a marvelous adventure. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, warm breezes tickle the air. Wide green vistas spread out invitingly before you. The distance is lost in the morning haze. This is a light digital orchestra of joy, promise, and anticipation. So take it away, Gummels, with your theme to Explorer Chronicles. That was the theme to Explorer Chronicles, which is a cool little comic. Thank you very much for that, Gummels. Unfortunately, I can't feature it because it was already featured 2 years ago. Explorer Chronicles, a comic by Aurora James, rated T, I believe. So yeah, you should check that out, guys. Right, so now we're going to be talking about panel order and what order. Like, you should only ever order your panels left to right and downwards. That's the only way. No, you can order them in any way you like. You know, even the annoying way. I will say it's annoying that people go, "Oh yeah, I'm ordering mine in the Japanese way."
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. You can do that. Right to left, left to right, whatever direction is best for you. Because it only takes a few moments to adjust, and then suddenly you can read it the right way. It isn't a problem. It's only really a problem when it's bottom to top and right to left, when it's completely back to front. And I've seen that happen a few times. That's confusing.
Yes.
But left to right, right to left, that doesn't matter. As long as it's consistent, it's fine. Consistency is key. If you're inconsistent, then it's really difficult.
Yeah, then you just, the reader remains consistent, so they read everything out of order. So.
Then it just doesn't flow.
No.
So yeah, be consistent. So we're talking about, so Baines introduced this idea with the so right, you got 3 panels, 2 small panels and 1 long panel. The long panel is on the right, the 2 small panels are on the left. So the quandary is, do you read the top small panel, then the bottom small panel, then move over to the right and read the long panel, which spans both of them? Or do you go top panel, panel on the right, the long panel, then bottom panel underneath the panel on the left? Do you do it that way? So it's not very easy to work out. It's not intuitive.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that was the point, isn't it? Like, it's meant to be unintuitive.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it's meant to go, okay, you can read this in whatever way you want. Is that how it's meant to go?
I don't know if it's that or if it's a mistake. I don't remember what the breakdown is. This has been studied scientifically. This is what a guy has written books on this topic. This guy Neil, I think it's a guy, Neil Cohn is his name, and I have a link to him in my news post about this topic. Yeah, and he's like done big like field tests of this stuff. I don't know if you call it field tests, but it's been tested with like control groups and everything, and like panels of all different varieties, and like sort of where what he's testing is obscured. So he has all these people read all these pages and sort of mapping out how many people go left to right in the instance you're talking about, and how many people go left to lower panel. And I'm blanking on, it's like sort of a 2/3 to 1/3 split. So it's kind of even. It is kind of confusing. Like the slightly more people go to the right, or the slightly more people go down. I don't remember, but
Jeez.
yeah, it's very interesting. Anyway, like, and he went on to sort of do more experiments with like if you raise the level of the confusing panel, like does that change the behavior? And it does. Like if the long panel is a slightly different height, it can change things. But anyway, I won't go into all that because I was going to put it in my news post and I didn't fully have a firm grasp on it, and I still don't. But that
I would
natural
say
inclination is sometimes split between people, so it is confusing.
mhm. There is if you go through, pattern recognition, which is our innate wired tendency to pick out patterns and order things and find faces in things that don't have faces. All of that is within the scope of the brain's pattern recognition mechanism. So we are basically, when we're reading a page with panels, we pick out a pattern that tells us, like hints, the order in which we should read it, read its panel. So if you have just little hints that are going to draw more attention to a panel than to all the other panels, there is a tendency to read that panel first. So if you have, like in a tier, you have two regular panels, like square, boring, regular panels. And then you have like a floating panel in between, squeezed in between or over, these two. Then you are probably going to read the floating panel first because it breaks the uniformity, let's say, and it attracts more attention.
So we can even be broken out of this thing of like, well, we always start at the top left. It's like, well, no, that can be changed as well. That's super interesting. Yeah. Floating panel somewhere in the middle or even right dead center, and that would draw the eye first.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how personally, that's how I read all comics. I start in the middle and then I kind of go in a spiral. Usually it doesn't make sense.
That's why all the stories are confusing.
That's why I never understand anything I'm reading. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, that example you've got of the Steranko image from 1969. It's amazing, the coloring, the paneling. That was like really ahead of its time for then, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
that's amazing. It is an incredible piece of work.
With the panels all over the place, where it's sort of purposely unclear on what order you're supposed to look at each panel in.
And Steranko was a guy who would just go in whatever direction he wanted to, in that art wise, like no one could control him. He would do his own thing, from what I've heard.
Oh, do you know about this guy? I don't really know anything about him.
You know about Steranko, don't you? Like, anecdotally?
No.
But he was the guy who did a lot of Doctor Strange, I think. And he would do really kind of bold.
Well, that might be Ditko, or is it Steranko?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well. Anyway, yeah, Steranko was very forthright in what he did, and yeah, very in his own direction. So he's I don't know what to say other than that. He's a huge figure in the comic landscape. Strank. He's got such a fantastic name too. Steranko. It sounds like a villain from Doctor Strange, doesn't it? Oh my God! It's Steranko. Oh no.
He kind of looks like a supervillain in a way too. I just looked him up.
He's gonna rip the world apart. He's gonna shatter everything. We're not gonna know what order anything goes in anymore. He's destroyed it.
I don't know enough to say this, but I think like he didn't do every page that way, to the fury of his editors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But again, I don't really know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a great example, and I love it that you've done that. So paneling, and we've all experimented with this, I suppose. Like we panel in all different ways. See, from my perspective, I was never really a really big comic guy. The only comics that I really used to read were Asterix mainly, a bit of Tintin, tiny, minuscule amount of heavy metal, and not much else. Sometimes I'd get a bit of Ghost in the Shell or Appleseed, but apart from that, I was just never a comics person because I'd read through them too fast, so it wasn't worth it to me to get a comic, and I wouldn't sit with a page long enough to really absorb the images, so it was wasted on me. So I never really had a firm theoretical grasp of what to do with panels. So when I was doing Pinky TA, like first starting it out over 20 years ago, I was working it out like reinventing the wheel, basically. Just paneling in whatever way seemed intuitively right to me. And I would make all kinds of mistakes, and I would do all the wrong paneling all the time. And worked it out that way. How did you guys approach your paneling?
Yeah, I just had my experience generally was European comics, and often comics that were originally serialized in newspapers, so they were four-tier, four-panel layouts through and through, no different layout. So my paneling was that, and the huge change that I made was different size rectangles. Oh my God!
Yeah, well, that's the first step towards the dark side of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was doing
panels,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I was reading a lot of Marvel and a lot of Archie, and I read newspaper for the 4-panel comics too. So yeah, I read a lot of comics for years before I really started doing one. Yeah, same as you. I just sort of would go in and just try to do it, and never particularly inventive, except on rare occasions. Yeah, and it really wasn't even a thought. Like I didn't even really think about panels; just kind of did it automatically, whatever seemed right and looked right to me. But, yeah, just to finish that off. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I can't remember what I was going to say now. When I was doing them, I always considered the 4-panel stuff or fixed grids and stuff like that. Because I came from a fine art background. I was doing paintings and sculpture and all that kind of stuff. and then going from that to comics. Being limited by grids was an anathema to me, because in fine art you're not really limited by anything. So that was a huge restriction, and I always wanted to break out of that. I never wanted to get stuck in just doing stuff in a grid. So I think fairly early on in my comic, I broke out of that by putting panels like on angles and things. A lot of floating panels, and just sometimes no borders on panels, just shapes that are have their own own borders created by the objects that they're depicting, and different experimental stuff. So I mean, you look back at my early Pinky TA pages, they're not, when I say experimental, not boarded, they're not amazingly creative, not genius kind of stuff. I'm not trying to say that. This was experimental for me. So I did start with griddings, and then just slowly expand out of that in my own way. And a lot of it is really awkward, and it's hard to read because it's not done well, and I didn't have a firm grasp of the theory, and it's clunky. So that's what I'm trying to say, that I didn't know what I was doing. I was working out as I was going, but I didn't want to just be limited by grids. So when I could work out how to get out of that, I did, but I would go back to gridding because that's the standard kind of simple way that works. So I attempted.
Right.
As much as I could. And the reason why I ordered things in the wrong way, because I didn't know what I was doing.
And yet still you made beautiful pages, so there's that.
Oh, thank you.
Incredible.
Thank you. So, Chance, you showed us this amazing page you did that was like a broken glass with shattered panels representing shattered, like, pieces of glass. It was incredible.
Yeah. So the whole thing with that Moonlight is that it has boring layouts most of the time. Like in the first, easily, I think the first 5 chapters are just, 4 or 3 tier rectangles. So, and I got called out on that. I don't remember, like I got at some point one critique or a review or I don't know. At some point, someone called me out on that. Like, that's such a boring layout. Yeah, and it hurt at the time, but it was true. So there was nothing I could say. I couldn't tell the person, "Oh, you are a hater." Wow, wow, wow. No, I could see at the time. I was past my era of really fighting critiques, so that was good. But then I said, okay, so this is the style of the comic. If I am going to do different layouts, they're going to have to be for a reason. And the default is going to be the boring layout, and the interesting stuff is in the panels. And if I break the layout, then I'm going to be saying something with it. So that particular page, and I'm very proud of it, because when I decided to make it, I was terrified of making it. I had no idea what I was doing. I had this concept in my mind that I wanted to completely shatter Fotis's conviction that he wanted all the traitors to die a brutal death.
Yeah.
And watch it and dance on their bodies and then, I don't know, light it on fire and whatever else. Because he's a kid, okay? He's just entering teenage years. He hasn't even hit puberty yet. So um, he's not going to realize that this is a very dangerous path unless something really shocking, shattering happens. So I wanted to break the layout again to show that, okay, this is big for him. So
And we will
we
link to
have,
this.
oh, thank you. We have this panel. So the scene is where this traitor got convicted and was taken to be executed, but he doesn't get executed. He gets murdered. Really, really blue. Like he basically gets disemboweled in a way. So we don't see that. So don't worry. But we do see the process. And the process is this background panel of the guy who is doing it, stabbing him once. We don't see more than that. And there is a lot of sound effects going snick, 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 which is the knife he's doing it with. And for every snick, there is this shattered glass floating panel radially around this background big panel of different people having different reactions to what is happening. So there are some people that are stoic, there are some that are totally enjoying it, there are some that are sort of internally cringing, but everyone is watching. So we see them, like the crowd that wanted him dead, how they are reacting. And then below, we have Potis being shot. And that's how the page ends. And behind him is the mangled corpse, but we don't really see the gore because Fotis is obscuring it in a way. So that was the page.
Very tasteful.
Yeah. I didn't want to draw a disemboweled corpse. The corpse was enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the whole point is that we see what he perceives emotionally, and the shattered glass situation is supposed to be like everything is happening all at once, and everything is traumatic. What is happening as the main event, which is the murder, the people reacting to it again are hurtful, and he is shocked. So you can read it in any way you want, in a sense, because everything is happening all at once.
Yeah.
But you will always come down to Fotis's expression in the end, no matter which way you start.
So the end point is the same, but the way you get there is your own choice.
Yeah.
Which is, and we were talking about this in our video, I think, about how comics can be, at least for certain snapshotty parts, like a non-linear medium, which you cannot get with film. Now, film, people who do film, they like to wax lyrical and be very wanky and saying, yeah, we're non-linear. Yeah, look at this example and that example. But film is 100% linear. It's always linear, no matter how many times you Pulp Fiction it out with all these different things or flashback around. It's still linear because it goes. Like you're locked into it as a viewer. You can't go, oh, I'll skip to this moment, I'll skip to that moment, because it doesn't work that way. I mean, you could do that with clever like DVD technology. Not that anybody does that anymore. I think there were a few examples of that back in the day, but we've gone now to streaming and all that's been eliminated, all those clever effects. Not that anybody did it because it was a huge pain in the ass. So film is always
maybe not hugely popular for whatever reason. Maybe otherwise,
it was hard to work out. Like they had
Oh, yeah.
the remotes with the different kind of things, and nobody knew how to use it or when to press it, so it was a dumb idea.
Mm.
Linear is king with film, even though something happens before, something happens like at the same time. The most you can do it is by showing multiple like screens in the same screen, which has been done a few times. Like, I don't know.
That's done sometimes. That's the closest. I agree. Yeah.
Sliding Doors did 2 different ones, I think. Is that Sliding Doors?
Yeah, Sliding Doors. They had that throughout that movie, I think. Yeah.
Run Lola Run would have these instances where, she'd bump into someone and then it would show like multiple photos of snapshots of what happened from that point on in this person's life, which was really clever. I think the Thomas Crown affair, didn't that have like, at least in the beginning, like multiple
I think so.
Shots of what people were doing? But even though that seems like it's showing us non-linear stuff, it's still linear in that you as a viewer can't really, stop and examine all those different things separately at your own pace. You have to go through it at the pace of the film. So it's still just a linear thing. Whereas in a comic, you can go through any of these panels in any order and spend as long as you want or as little as you want on them. So it's there's more freedom to be non-linear in a comic than there is in film. The comics win.
in that one area, they definitely comics have that special.
Oh no, comics win every single area now, so we declare them the victor for life now. Although, I mean, like I say, film people do like to, talk about non-linear, and you just don't get it, film guys. So.
I mean, film can do amazing things. You can have different audio crossed with different video. You can bring back clips of audio from earlier in the movie, or whatever, and repeated things, and like sort of cross things, and like you already said, different like a comic book looking page on the screen or whatever. But for an audience member, it's like linear. You can be free to look around the screen, like that comic book thing is close to it, but only for as long as they're showing you.
Exactly.
that image.
Exactly. So there you go. To introduce true non-linearity into film involves stuff that's outside of the normal delivery of film.
Yeah.
Which makes it...
I mean, any kind of visual art can do it, but we're talking about a narrative.
And comics is very simple to do.
Yeah.
Very easy. You don't have to introduce anything new into a comic to do it.
That's right. It's in the nature of the medium. Yeah.
There's no special technology or conventions you need people to reorient themselves with. So linearity. So
I'm thinking of some particular panels over the years that I've read that have been so awesome. Some big pages, big rooms. There was this Hulk comic called Future Imperfect, where the Hulk goes forward in time. All the heroes are dead. And at one point he walks in, another character is keeping this hero museum. It's the remains of all these heroes that you know from Marvel. And it's a massive splash page, with all this stuff on shelves and hanging on walls and everything. And you just open this page and it's so awesome. You just look around forever. Or I did anyway, like finding all the little things, all the little references, all the little stuff that's buried in there. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Interesting, because that reminds me of course, the marginalia that can happen, which, I mean, famously, Mad Magazine was cool for that, but those were usually not related to the comics. for like a separate comic. But it reminds me of Moebius. Moebius, is that how you say his name? I was thinking of it as Mobius, as in the Mobius strip, but apparently
I say it as Mobius.
All right. From now on, his name is Mobius. Well, yeah. So here's a great example of someone you like. Look at these fantastically detailed pages with 7 million different individually drawn humans within them, and you just spend ages looking at them. So talk about non-linearity. You'll just pause just because of the nature of the art. You don't sort of glance over, oh, that's background detail. You look at those pages and you go, oh my god, you look at these panels and you go, okay, I have to look at every single thing in here.
Yeah, just look around, take it in. There was a children's book, I think it was. Man, I can't remember what it was now, but you're just reminding me of it. Where in the background were all these elves, these little gnomes and elves, and on every page, and they were always like, they were everywhere in the background and doing these funny little things. So it was so fun to look around and see like what all these little, and the book wasn't even about elves or gnomes or whatever they were. They were just in the background in this story, and on every page you sort of look around and see because they're always doing something funny. It was amazing, like two up on a shelf fighting over a cookie or whatever. Like there's all these like fun things to find on the page. So cool.
Wow, so they're like a B story or a C story almost. Just in the background.
Not even referenced in the text, I don't think. Yeah, just in the background.
Yeah, just it's a background art story.
Yeah.
That's a clever thing to do. Like I like to do that kind of thing when I'm doing a big like a crowd scene or something. In that my version of it will be to have like background characters having their own conversations that are not linked to the main conversation, and that would be my version of that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. You could do that a lot in Bottomless Waitress, I think.
Yeah, well, actually, being more Bainesian now, but actually, Baines was like wasn't like my own. Like often, what I would do is I would like insert different kind of things happening in the backgrounds in panels, just of like Baines would say, okay, this is the story, these are the characters, this is what they want to do, and then I would like put some stuff happening in the backgrounds just for my own fun. But in the later pages, Baines is saying, okay, so we've got background characters here and they're doing stuff. So Baines is directing it. But yeah, so I'm definitely having more fun with that in the later pages of Bottomless Waitress, having these characters sort of seemingly, doing things that the reader can look at and go, okay, so why are they looking that way and what's happening there? What happened, between these panels with these characters? I mean, not that much of a thing because I'm not that complicated, but just hinting at it.
Yeah. I seem to remember also, I think it was in Asterix comics, maybe some Lucky Luke as well. But there are, like, I remember a little blue jay family that constantly needs to carry its nest to other trees in the background. And like I also remember in some other book of Asterix, like a family of chickens that have their own story throughout
Pigs as well, the wild boars.
Yeah, boars as well. But especially like these little farm animals, like especially chickens that you can find like in little tucked away in little corners of the background. So in the first read, you might not even notice them. But then you have this little story of a chicken family doing stuff. So
you've got the little doggy. I can't remember his name, doing his own things.
It's a fix.
What's the dog called?
Idefix.
Oh, okay.
At least in French. I don't remember the other name.
Yeah, it's got a billion names depending on what language it's written in. It always ends in Celtic sounding for that language.
Yeah.
Or Gaelic. That's the thing. Okay, Celtic and Gaelic or Gaelic, people imagine that they're all different. Like, oh, Gaelic, that means, yeah, or Celtic. Or Gallic, they're all different. Like, Gallic is French, and no, in reality, they're all the same people. All come from Gaul, and Celt is the Greek origin name, and Gaul is the Roman origin name for the same people. Doesn't matter if they're French, Spanish, Irish, British, they're all the same ethnicity. It's like saying Slav. They could be Russian, Polish, Slovakian, whatever, but they're all Slavs. So Celts are the same thing. So there, dickheads. I've had this argument online. People saying, no, Gaelic is this, or Gauls or whatever. No, they all come from the same frickin' origin, man. They're not. And the thing I love about Asterix is they realise that, and they sort of, hint at the fact that, like we've got Belgians and French and like English and whatever, but they're all actually just different kinds of Gaul.
I don't know. I mean, some I guess would be Germanic, but they are drawn differently.
Oh, the Germanic, they're different. They're not included as Gauls. They're a different group. They're related in costume, but they're the Huns in Asterix.
Yeah. Or the Normans. Like that book was hilarious. Like Asterix and the Normans.
Yeah, you know what? I remember that they had the Viking kind of characters in that. And I remember reading it, thinking, even back then, I knew that, hang on, Vikings didn't exist in Roman times. They did not exist. This is hundreds of years before Vikings existed.
Yeah.
But then later on, I found that Vikings didn't exist, but the Vendel people, or people who were Norsemen, they had always existed in that area. They became Vikings hundreds of years later, but and they actually had horned helmets back then. So all the stereotypes of Vikings very much attached to these ancient pre-Viking people, which is cool. And we've segued into something totally different now. So.
Yeah.
We love Asterix.
We do. I used to have the entire collection.
Oh, yeah. That would have been fantastic. I've got a few lying around. All right. And, okay, so let's bring it back. Okay, Asterix, I learned some paneling from Asterix. Asterix mainly has gridded panels, but they do have some floating panels, and they do have the weird kind of laid out extra long panels as well, but they always have arrows telling you which way to go.
And they also have like the establishing shot panels, like not necessarily splash pages, but like a big panel establishing Rome, I guess, or
or the Gallic village.
Yeah. And I also remember, I think that was in the Battle of the Chiefs or one of those, where they have this double page spread, which is super rare for Asterix, because they want to depict a battle where all the Gauls are just spilling out of the village and thrashing all the poor Roman legionaries. And it is hilarious because it is super detailed. And again, you can read it in any way you like because it is all happening at once. And it has like little square narrative bubbles.
Right.
So.
Exactly. Asterix is a great primer for people who want to learn how to do comic stuff. Yeah, like I say, I wasn't a big comic guy. I hadn't sort of read a huge variety of different comics, but I did read a lot of Asterix. And that taught me artistically the way to go with comics. Yeah,
Right.
there's establishing shots and stuff like that. And I've heard people say, like, establishing shots, even in film, that's a standard kind of white bread way to go. But so what? Communication is important. And
clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clarity.
Well, there's a reason why it is the white bread. Because it goes with everything, and it's easy to understand and consume and digest.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, clarity, communication is super important in comics medium, unless you, for whatever reason, you want to obscure your meaning, which is fair enough. But for the majority of us, we want to communicate our ideas to people clearly, our story. And that's a good standard way to go. I mean, that's why in the Western world, you do the left to right down the page, because it's a consistent form. Like, and it doesn't take much effort to go the other way, right to left. But most people are used to this way, so that's how you really should go. Normally. And that was even the way a lot of manga used to be. They would reverse it when it was done for an English speaking, or not English. I don't even know. Like, I've never read a French version of a manga, but I imagine it's the same thing. If you're doing a Western version of a manga, you would reverse the page, and that really doesn't involve any confusion. And it's just easier to read for us. But although, like I say, it's very easy to get used to.
Yeah, there are the purists, and I know that because we have some manga fans here in Greece that are super purist. Like you either get the super casual fan that doesn't care as long as the story gets across, and then you have like the one with the shrine. So and those are somehow more than the others over here. I don't know how that happened. And they don't like the reversal, so that it becomes left to right. And the reason that they state for this is not because they like to be, cool and read like the Japanese read, but because you need to mirror image the art. So you don't see it the way it was originally intended. You see it flipped, and that takes away from the original intent of the artist, and that's why the purists want it as it was, and just they say, okay, we will read the right to left, it's fine. So.
Yeah, and from my experience of actually drawing my pages and presenting them in the wrong way, in that, oh my god, I finished the page and I forgot to flip it the right way, and it's the wrong way, and I've put all the panels and stuff like that, like all the speech and everything like that is on the page that's the wrong way around, so I've had to flip it back. And then the problem is you have to move all the text panels into the right way, and that's like, for the reading level, okay, so this panel I can't find any way for it to fit, for it to be logical. So I think that would be the biggest issue for that manga kind of stuff, when they flip it.
Yeah.
Having readability of where the panels go.
Right.
Which could be a nightmare. So yeah, I mean, there is a good reason for not flipping it from that point of view.
Yeah, that's why I don't consider myself like a super fan of like, I don't really know all the details. I don't collect all the extra stuff, the merchant. I don't do that. I just really like the book. And that's the reason I like it the way it was drawn and not flipped. Sorry about my dogs.
It's going crazy. Well, yeah, I don't mind as long as it's readable. As long as it's readable. I think I had I've got an example of that. I've got I think Ghost in the Shell, and I got an example years ago from an ex-girlfriend of the full Ghost in the Shell, and then just last year or the year before I got another version of the same comic but in hardcover, and this is like the really good version, and they haven't flipped any of the pages in that version, so I can directly compare the earlier flipped version with this newer non-flipped, and it's interesting. It reads exactly the same. Pretty much. I mean, it's flipped, so it doesn't read exactly the same, but there's nothing's lost. I mean, you don't gain anything extra from it, from Ghost in the Shell anyway. But yeah, there you go.
So I don't know if you guys covered this while I was sneakingly away, quietly. But have you talked about the pages where the panels are gridless? Like you have a page that is completely without a grid, but you still have quote unquote panels. And,
No, we didn't
how you
mention
have?
that.
We haven't. No, we haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
So yeah, that is hard. I almost had to censor myself.
This is in the video cast, you can't swear naughty in this version. The Patreon only.
I know that it is hard because I had to do a few of those. Because when my characters in Without Moonlight reminisce, remember, and all of that, then there is no grid. It is like a flow of memory and a flow of all that. And to do that flow, I still don't think I'm not sure I even got it. Like I made the page, but you just fake it till you make it, I guess.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I've done it a few times.
Bottomless Waitress has some pages like that, right?
Yeah, I love doing it. Love it, but like you say, it's tricky because you intellectually you have to work out how you're going to do this stuff, and doing grids is so much easier.
Yeah. And I generally try to use some kind of art or the bubbles or both to direct the flow, like how you should read it and in what order and how you, because usually I don't go the classical way across a page that is gridless. I usually go like a bit like a zigzaggy sort of way. So there has to be some kind of indication of how you should navigate the page, and I usually do that with gradients and bubbles, and in my and in my latest one, I also had a stave because the memory came with music, and it was Arthur's memory of his brother playing the violin. So I used the stave to direct the flow and how you should read it.
Music
and I
does
don't
really work that way.
No, go ahead. I didn't add anything else.
No, I said music does really work that way. It's very helpful to have because people know what order lyrics go in, so that can direct you to the correct way of reading it. Yeah, I've done it a few times with Bottomless Waitress. Even when it's gridded, I've done it. Just cleverly, by just putting floating art in between. I mean, I wouldn't say clever because it's not like it's my genius to doing it. It's just like more instinctual. That one is the famous one.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
That was so much fun.
And it reads easily, by the way, without the need for props. So yeah, add that in your links.
Yes, Bottomless Waitress. All right, now we're sort of getting towards the end. We've got like 3 minutes left before we get kicked off by the Google AI.
So we're gonna say goodbye, right?
We should. All right. So yeah, this has been a amazing Quackcast on Baines's genius idea about paneling. Thank you for that, Baines.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Baines.
All right. Bye-bye, people.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. It's going to kick us off, and we're going to go right to the border, right to the edge of the panel.
We're going to go to the border.
Before we get kicked off.
Yes.
Okay. All right.